Good. Testing.
All right. We good? Okay. All right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to start out, I have the honor of swearing in Miss Grace Goebel as our ex officio. As our ex officio student board member for the 25-26 school year. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Grace Goebel,
I, Grace Goebel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of ex officio student member
the duties of ex officio student member
of the West Babylon Board of Education
of the West Babylon Board of Education
for the 25-26 school year,
for the 25-26 school year,
in accordance with the Constitution
in accordance with the Constitution
and the laws of the state of New York
and the laws of the state of New York
and the policies of the West Babylon School District,
and the policies of the West Babylon School District
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Ms. Goebel.
Thank you.
You're now officially sworn in.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome aboard. Actually, we'll just go around real quick and introduce ourselves in case you don't know everyone. You want to start? Obviously you know, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
Victoria Galante, I'm the interim assistant superintendent of finance.
Patty Neville, trustee.
Kathy Gilbert, trustee.
Steve Siri, trustee. Shoreline Human Resources.
Katie Armato, trustee.
Chris Palolo, trustee.
Nice to meet you. You'll be fine.
Christine Durant, district council.
Anthony Rockamadato, trustee. John Paul, trustee.
Johnson, trustee.
Grace Chapin.
Comes out, Mr. Payne. You can't take the principal out of him. Awesome. All right.
Just so everybody's on the same page, except for this meeting, Grace would then play a part in kind of an update on things throughout the
Yes,
district.
so part of the agenda, right, included in our agenda is a statement, on behalf of our student association, right? So, starting in September, right, we already started this process, by the way, in the end of the school year, where we set up systems in place. Grace is going to be communicating, she's going to be speaking on behalf of our student body, right? So it's elementary level, junior high school, and senior high school. So at different board meetings, she'll have maybe an update from the senior high school, or a topic, for us to talk about from the senior high school, or maybe from the elementary level, right? Sharing upcoming events, on behalf of our student body. So she is part of our agenda, and starting in September, she will be communicating kind of different topics on behalf of our student body during our board meeting. So we are looking forward to having you on and hearing our direct student voice through you.
Great. Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of July 1st, 2025. Steve, Patty, all those in favor? That's everyone? Okay. Okay, Dr. Farrelly.
Okay.
Mr. President, before we continue, is it possible we could leave a page in our minutes blank for the people who were killed yesterday in Manhattan?
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't have
appreciate
a
it.
problem with that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Happy summer. I hope that all of our WB families are enjoying the time. Maybe not so much the heat of today and tomorrow, but that you are enjoying some time with your family and loved ones. Again, a warm welcome to Grace, who is part of our team, and we look forward to working with you throughout the school year. We have 3 pretty extensive presentations tonight, so this part of the agenda will be rather quick. Just another quick update on our UPK. As a board and admin team, we have been discussing a number of different obstacles, right, that we've had recently, but I'll really cut to the summary. Due to some insurance requirements, right, and some insurance needs, at OLOG, as per our own district insurance carrier, we are going to be unable to have a section of UPK at OLOG. However, our team, worked together, and we do have a classroom, and we're going to be working with Scope so that these families can be offered a UPK seat, right, in district, right, instead of OLOG. So that process, families are being notified this week. We'll get that going. Okay. So at this point, I'd like to jump right to our first presentation. We have Mr. John Grillo with us tonight. How are you, John?
Good, how are you? How's everybody?
Doing well, thank you. So John is here with Mike. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Ladridas. We are going to jump right to where we left off. We have your presentation, Mr. Grillo, and you have it in front. We're going to talk about our proposed summer 2026 capital project.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Am I on? Just a little recap from the last presentation. As we know, we have 2 funding sources for these capital projects. Michael? No.
Okay. Can be a regular click. There we go. Nope.
I messed it up again. I can draw better than I can, Is there a clicker? There we go.
There we go.
So we have 2 funding sources we're talking about. We have funds that was left over from the 2015 bond issue and funds that were left over from the 2022 bond issue. We have to combine the funding from the 2022 bond issue so we make sure we get full building aid on the tennis court piece. So we need the window replacement line item from the 2022 to get us building aid on the other project. So by combining the funds that are left, we have $515,000 left from the 2015 bond. That, as a standalone, is not enough to fully renovate the one tech room. So we're taking money from the 2022, which is the tennis court piece, plus we're gonna replace some of the windows and the exterior door on the one tech wing, and we'll be able to get our full building aid that way.
Next slide.
Mike, you wanna hit those? Is that you?
Yeah.
There you go. These are just some existing conditions of the tech. This one?
I think it's them in the back.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I keep pressing the button.
We did we spent some time over there, took some pictures.
Took some pictures, did all our field measuring.
That's
You
your
can-
slide. That's your current slide.
Yep. So
The
no,
board has seen these during our walkthroughs also.
Yes.
I'm
Right.
sure
Yes.
you remember from your junior high school days too, right?
So if
Yes.
we want to go to the next
Yep.
one. So really quickly, the existing conditions of what we're talking about here, the tennis courts, the handball court, and then the basketball court area. So we've completed the topographical survey, the utility mark out, and the soil borings. And the picture on the left, if you remember, I originally trying to squeeze the basketball court running perpendicular to the tennis courts. But after we got the surveys back, we need that egress for emergency vehicles. So I redid the basketball courts, and now it's in line with the tennis courts.
Great.
And then we made an additional outdoor seating area. So that's a rendering of the 4 new tennis courts, basketball court, new handball court, and then the blue and the yellow there, those are, they call them sails, shade sails. So we would have some outdoor seating area, outdoor learning space for the kids. I would do synthetic turf, but not the turf you see on a high school football field with the sand and the crumb rubber. It's just a sand-based field, tables, chairs, setups like that. So that's just a view of it. With the sails overhead, we're going with just a, blue and gold school colors. We don't have to do sails on all 4 areas. We can kind of mix and match, but just to kind of get an idea of what we can do here. These were just some of the renderings. And then we had the walk. And we're gonna do something with brick, with a WB inlay, and then a brick archway with West Bab entering into the field there. And this is the updated timeline. Shifted out a little bit. I'm still not concerned in the least. Right now, the state is only running about 2-week backlog, 2 to 3 weeks,
Wow.
That's great.
down from 38 weeks
Yeah, that's
only
great.
a couple of years ago. So again, item number 1, we're talking about that now. Item number 2 is already complete. We'll have plans and specs up to the state by probably the middle to end of September. I still want to meet with the building principal and the teacher to make sure we know what pieces of equipment are going where, so the dust collection system is placed properly, the outlets, 110 outlet, 220 outlet, those kind of things. So we'll work through that as we design. And then I'd like to be out to bid by October, November, lock these guys in place
Early, yes, definitely.
for a summer 2026 installation.
So let's go back to the slide where we can see, there we go.
Yep.
I think this does capture all the different areas that different trustees had brought up, right, in terms of outdoor area, in terms of the egress, right, that we were concerned about for emergency vehicles. Some shade, and again, we can, that's
Yep.
really more kind of variation. That's not necessarily something that would have to be etched in stone, right, in terms of how much of it or not, but we definitely wanted some shade, right, for our students sit, hang out, relax during rec.
What's the area around the seating areas, in between the kind of coming into the back area? Is that blacktop?
Yeah, so the main area is gonna be blacktop, and then we'll either do some regular concrete or blacktop in between. Depending, we might bid it both ways, asphalt is cheaper, so you might bid it both ways to see, but then you have so many different, the asphalt next to the concrete, and then you have the brick walkway, so I don't want it to look like, almost
Right.
like a showroom, where you
Right.
walk and you see all of these different samples
Right.
of rock and stone and
Right.
stuff.
And then you have to have all these breaks between
Correct.
all these different hardscapes?
And the emergency route, we want asphalt because the concrete will just crack. And if you don't crack it, it's gotta be a thicker concrete with, small rebar in it, and I just don't think it's worth the money to spend for that, at least the egress route along the building.
Okay. You mean the space that you have to allow for vehicles to get around?
Yeah.
Okay.
We spoke about extra basketball hoops.
Yep.
How many extra did we have?
What you could do, I have one full-size court, and then I was gonna do, depending on how much color we want, usually I do 2 and 2 on either side. So you can have either 2 mini games, 1 full-size, or 4 individual pickup games.
They like to play that.
Yeah, during rec, the pickup games, yeah.
Sure.
Yep,
And handball.
yep.
So four,
Yeah, definitely. So it would still be the same, right, exactly, except we would have the
Yep.
additional 2.
Yep.
So you were just saying the main run for vehicle access would be blacktop. You would stay with blacktop there.
Correct.
The little pathways around each island of seating areas, you would maybe do something
We could
different.
bid it as asphalt then concrete, just so we make sure we're not over budget, so we have a
Okay.
couple of options.
Okay.
And then what I also plan on doing is running conduit around the outside of the tennis court, the handball court, and the basketball. Not to say we're gonna light them, but at least when the ground's ripped open, if we throw plastic conduit with, with a drag line in there, if you ever wanted to do something like that,
smart.
we're not ripping the place up.
Okay.
Silly question, but
Never a silly question.
that's not the true colors, correct?
No, that's just what the rendering looks like. No, we're gonna pick West Bab colors, blue and gold. We're gonna do the best we can. Sometimes like the sail, those sails, they don't come in every single variation of yellow, but we're gonna give you actual full samples depending on, who the contractor is to pick and choose the colors that you want.
Question on those sails. Do they stay on all year? Do they come off? Are they removable? Are they replaceable?
They can stay on all year. A lot of districts take them down,
Okay,
just because of the weather and stuff like that. But
okay.
yeah, and then, they're replaceable. I
Right.
haven't seen any rip yet.
Right, right. I mean, I'm thinking 5 years from now, when one rips, and then
Yeah.
you take it down and we never replace it. It's-
Correct.
Or, you know,
It's just like yeah, colored, and then you'll have, obviously, the aluminum poles sit in the ground and footings, and then it's basically almost like cable that holds them in place.
when do districts usually take those off? In the wintertime or at
In
the
the
end of the
wintertime,
year?
usually
Okay.
like November, depending on I mean, we don't have a spring anymore, so maybe,
Right.
end of fall, start of what we want to think of as spring, November
Okay.
to March, maybe, something like that.
How much seating do you think is gonna be under those sails, totally?
Oh, dozens. I mean, we could either do four-person table, individual, we don't have to put tables and chairs under one. We could use one for individual seating if they just want to kind of sit. It doesn't get hot, the turf, because it's being shaded, and it's also only sand. So there's no crumb rubber to, burn the
heat.
kids as they're sitting there in the middle of the day.
So my thought is that seating you have against a building that's not under the sails, is that needed? Is it overkill on benches and seating?
I think at that age, they all like to sit around. Basically, that's what they do. at
Recess.
night, is just
Especially
sit off.
girls, yep.
Girls, I think the more seating, the better.
They sit on the sidewalk. I sat on the floor at rec every day.
That's what
What's
Dr.
that?
Falcone said, yeah? Yes.
The area where the walkway is going to be is where, I think conceptually, where like all the food trucks were going, when we have events there, is there enough space in the back that you would be able to have those vehicles and still have room for emergency vehicles? I know we've
And
kinda
where
talked
would they
about-
would sit along the walk? Will they
There
park
was-
along the walk?
Yeah.
Okay, then we got to rethink that a little bit.
I mean, it's not something
It
we
wasn't
have to
designed for
just-
vehicular traffic.
That
in
was
our initial
envisioning that as more as a walkway itself. If we want to park food trucks or something like that, we do maybe removable benches and maybe maybe do concrete there, but widen that a little bit.
Unless they can fit
Well, we can,
back,
you would be able to then park the food truck
that's what I'm saying,
before
is
the
it big
walkway.
enough there? That's
There's
what my
there's
question-
definitely enough room there. I mean,
Okay.
once I have the survey down, I could show you what the dimensions are. I'm sure. How many food trucks are we bringing?
I don't- they usually
One or-
have
one or two
one to
max.
two.
Well, plenty.
Yeah.
It looks
I
like
think you
there's
can
a
tell
lot
me
of
like
room, right?
35
There's a
or
lot of-
40.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got this whole alcove here.
That's really emergency vehicles will come in.
No,
Yeah,
we're
as
gonna
long as
pour
they're
a
not blocking.
concrete slab underneath the bricks, partly because we don't want too many weeds growing up and through it.
Right,
But that whole asphalt area will be fine.
that'd be enough for the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how about access for our maintenance guys? They normally bring small pickup trucks on the field to do picking
Yeah,
up
we would
equipment and
use
stuff.
the same lane as the emergency vehicle lane
So they
to
would come
make
a
sure.
different way.
Yeah, we don't have
Okay.
an issue with the weight, the load of a vehicle on the surfacing.
It's usually a thicker asphalt or a different underlayment?
Asphalt, no, it's fine.
on-
It's 1.5 base and 1.5 top is plenty for
Okay,
construction of, road grade is fine.
okay,
Bus lane is that 1.5,
Okay.
with over 6 inches of stone.
okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
How tall is your fencing around everything?
I'm doing 10-footer on everything.
Okay.
I know we had talked about that a little bit. I didn't want it to look too much like a corral, but you really need 10 foot at the tennis court.
Yep.
And then depending on what we want to do, if you want to do, it would either be 10 foot or nothing. I mean, I think 4 foot is just a waste. The only
Yes.
time I ever use 4-foot fences around a track, and then I do a double rail so you can lean on it, so the spikes don't come up through the top there. So it would either really be, if you want it open to everybody, and then just leave the basketball court unfenced, just fence the tennis court.
I think everything should be fenced
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah, that's fine.
I agree with the fence, yeah.
And the fence is plastic coating?
What's that?
The fence is plastic?
It's a vinyl fence, right? Like a vinyl-
Black vinyl coated, yep,
The vinyl
yep,
coating?
yep.
Currently, we have like plaques over there. Are those gonna be put back? Don't we have stones that are in memory of certain?
Yeah, so we would need to pull those and then kind of reestablish a spot for them. Yep.
Okay.
We have a tree dedicated, right, like so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm new to this. Have we had ever before like stones with engraving in them in those kinds of pathways, or something that we'd want to explore for families and?
The old build a, or buy a brick thing you're talking about?
Not into it.
So, yeah,
Not
we
into
talked
it.
about, yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that with the
Okay,
last one.
all right.
Yeah.
We talked about it, but that takes a lot of,
Behind the scenes.
yeah. Maybe we could do something else, like,
Yeah, we were thinking of making like an alumni walkway
Right.
at one point, trying to do something different. But if I remember correctly, it was they build the path, and then they take the bricks out
right.
to get them.
When we do that, I mean, it sounds great and everybody's all rah-rah, and then you sell like 300 and it gets you like this much walkway.
Right.
I mean, so we would do it in a way where you could do a combination of either 4x8 or 8x8s. I would put the whole path down and then have the contractor provide an additional skid, so that if you wanted to sell them at your leisure, I mean, I think I said this before, I mean, Disney World doesn't have all their stone sell, as you walk into the Magic Kingdom, so get an extra pallet where you can engrave it, find a local engraver that can do some at a time. You know, we'll start the initial, you know, maybe like February, maybe January, February, start the thing through the boosters and something like that, buy a brick or, you know, the band or something like that. And then we can install what we can, but then when we don't, we'll have extras on the side.
Okay.
But you want to you want to be, you know, by the end of August, we want it done, so everybody's walking across
Yeah.
Right. Right.
no tripping hazards.
All right. Any other questions? Are we okay with our project?
If I'm looking at the picture, so you have the blacktop kind of wraps around the side of the basketball court also?
Yep.
Okay, how does the transition from that to the grass is a curb, a structured curb?
I don't know if I would do a concrete curb. They do make metal edging on a perimeter. I mean, if we want to do a concrete curb, we could do that too as an alternate.
I'm
Or I
just
could even
curious.
bring the grass almost, you know, much closer so that it's not as much asphalt.
Well, it wasn't the amount of asphalt, it's the transition,
Yep.
it's the break, because then the grass just becomes not a very, you know, defined
Yeah.
ending, it just kind of grows into the,
So usually they make like an L, so the asphalt stops here, the grass stops here.
oh, okay.
The only problem with that is sometimes it gets to be a tripping hazard, so
Oh.
we may want to run a concrete curb down there, something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
You were talking here?
No, see
What are
how
you
this,
talking
right here along this line.
Oh,
where-
here.
where
Okay,
the-
got it,
Where
got
that
it.
blacktop transitions to the grass, so
Got
you
it.
just don't have the grass randomly growing.
Yeah.
Which is
I got it.
dirt.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly.
It's not really
It's just
grass
better if it's
over there.
defined, yeah.
Got it.
And
But
part
the
of this,
curb
I
is
was
a
gonna
good
say, wait a
idea.
minute, isn't this turf? But yes, you're talking here. Yep.
part of this project is not the coach's tower that
No.
was going to go to
No.
the bleachers, no?
Separate press box.
Press box.
We're working on that.
Yep.
We can't find who the manufacturer of the bleachers is. I checked with all three vendors on, like, do a lot of Long Island bleachers we can't find, so I had another contractor go in to see if we can use the existing stand and put the press box on. Worst comes to worst, we'd have to take that steel off, put new steel, and put the press box on top of that.
We need to ensure that it
We
can
need-
hold it,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? So that's the research process they're in now. Yep.
Yep.
But that would be separate, because that's part of the separate, I want to call it grant, but, right, like, you know, in terms of funding that is available for us to use for that purpose, yeah? Yep. Other questions? No? All right, so we're moving ahead with
Moving
this
ahead.
plan, Mr. Grillo. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
I will keep you all posted.
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you.
Good night. Don't go too far, Mr. L. All right, so we are going to pivot. Thank you. Is it working on this one? Let's see. Oh, it's working. Okay. So we don't typically, right, obviously, a part of every, most meetings, right, we revise our policies. Sometimes they're brand-new policies based on state requirements. Sometimes they're revisions, right, of our own current policies. In this case, this is a new policy that is required by law for all school districts in New York State. Actually, I'm pretty sure that almost all of our counterparts are having meetings tonight, and part of their agenda is their new policy as well. It's policy 5695, student and personal electronic devices. So Education Law 2803 is the specific law that we are referencing that prohibits, starting this school year, students from using internet-enabled devices during the school day. What do we mean by internet-enabled devices? That's cell phones, that's the
Smartwatch.
watches, the smart watches. Thank you, Mr. Raccomandato. I just learned this recently. Apparently, there are also glasses now that have the same functions, right? Anything along those lines. Part of this process required us gathering some input, right, from various stakeholders. We did that. If you recall, I think it was maybe 2 months ago or so, right, I sent out a district-wide survey. We've had a number of different meetings, not just internally, but also with other school districts across Long Island. We've also consulted with school district attorneys. We've consulted with our insurance, which in our case is nicer. Obviously, in terms of throughout the last couple of weeks, updates to the board as the conversations have evolved. Drafted a policy, right? And ultimately, again, we're looking at adopting this policy tonight. Okay. So a couple of, I can't read that. Just main, I guess, summary points, right, from the survey. From, most, right, indicated that they were somewhat or pretty familiar, right, with the state guidance. I think probably, again, it was in the news a number of different times, right? So in general, right, everyone that responded, and I think, if I recall correctly, we had close to about 400 people complete the survey. There was generally strong support, right, from parents and staff members on the general concept, right, of the ban. Not from the students, right? Again, that we expected that, right, in terms of, the overall kind of feeling about it. Some of the concerns that came through, right, from the individuals that completed the survey was from an enforcement perspective, right, from student-parent communications, right, since students wouldn't be having their phones with them. And also an equity piece, right? So there were different, comments or concerns about, well, I normally reach out to my child during the day about this, right? I send them a quick text or, kind of things on those lines. So that was the general, and also the how to communicate, right? If I need to leave my child a message, during the day, we need to make sure that there's a system in play for that, or vice versa. If my child needs to reach out to me, I just want to make sure that my child knows how they can reach out to me if they can't use their cell phone, right? So those were some of the general concepts or comments or statements that were made throughout. Definitely, those that completed the survey indicated that they could see how that would have an improved, there would be some sort of improvement in terms of focus, right? We do know from an educational, perspective and in secondary level, in particular, right? The constant put your phone away, right? Or, please put it away, right? What are we doing? Can we put the phones away, right? That is a constant, right? So certainly looking to improve focus, classroom management, social interactions. In general, most that completed the survey indicated that they could see how those would be benefits to having this in place. Some suggestions that were brought up throughout the survey, some recommended classroom phone holders, some recommended, the main piece was just consistency, right, in terms of its enforcement, was brought about. And again, some questions as to how are you guys going to do this, right? And that definitely was the same sentiment throughout other school districts as well. Again, student feedback was mixed, right? Some concerns. There were some that suggested, well, can you maybe just do a pilot program? Can you start it later on? That is just, that's not by our choice, right? The law does indicate that we have to start it now, so that's not something that we could do. And then again, from an emergency access, right, especially for medical needs, and the law does allow for specifically exactly that, right? So if a student, as an example, let's say has a medical, let's say diabetes, right, there's a particular software or program that is on their internet-based device that specifically is there and helps them monitor different things, then that is allowable, right? And there's a process in play with the student's 504 accommodation plan or their IEP in which they would be allowed to use that device for that purpose, right? Nothing else, but for that purpose. And again, that would happen through the child's being documented through a child's 504 or their IEP. So overview, right, of our policy. In terms of communication protocols during the school day, right, at the elementary level, for the most part, right, like this is in place right now at the elementary level, right? Few students, right, have, come into school with, with a cell phone in terms of at the elementary level, right? So this is pretty similar to, this is what it is right now, right? Parents call the main office, right, and say, can you let Yendi know, or, I really need to, right? So that process is exactly the same, where the main office at the elementary level, that's really the communication form where it would be happening in terms of a student needing to call, I need to call my mom about this, or obviously nurse's office is still in play, right, with any nursing needs. So the communication specifically between home and a child that needs to happen during the school day would happen through the main office. Same thing at the junior high school and senior high school, right, where there will be phones designated, right, for students to be able to go and contact if they have to contact home for something, right, or vice versa. If a family, someone needs to communicate something that's of importance during the school day, right, they would be calling the main office, calling the assistant principal's office to indicate, can you please let Yendi Farrelly know, the following, right, or can you please leave this message, right, like, so that communication would happen through those offices. As an aside, it's not in the policy, but it is something that we are exploring. We're exploring Chromebook-based email communications between students and parents, right? So what do I mean by that? So when this policy talks about internet-based devices, that excludes the Chromebook, right? That excludes the instructional devices, right, that are used during the school day. We know that our secondary students, right, they have their email addresses. We know that in our parents system, right, I email out to all families. I can email out to all of, Tooker Avenue parents, right, or just to the high school, or I can do a district-wide message. We get that information through the student information system, right? Those are systems that communicate with one another. We are exploring right now whether we can establish a system where we can specifically identify, okay, well, here are the parents and guardians that are outlined in the student information system for this child, and here is the child, and here is their email address. Can they communicate with one another also through email, right? As of right now, right, we don't have, we're not the only district that's exploring this, right? Other school districts are doing that. Obviously, we have to ensure that we don't open us up to additional, cyber, concerns and issues, right? We also don't want to have the ability where just any random person, again, things are pretty tight, especially with the student email addresses. And as we know, once we click on something, once we use our district email address to, Macy's, right? Like anything, right? Then that's an open line, right? Where now additional spam gets through, right? And other issues can occur from a cybersecurity world. So I put that with an asterisk because that is something that we are actively, looking into to see if we can establish that for our students and families. Is it working? Not working? Thank you. From a storage perspective, across the board, we're recommending that all students leave devices at home, right? I mean, that is the, K-12 recommendation, right, for devices to be left at home. However, for families that choose and that prefer and that want their child, right, to have their cell phone, right, to go to and from school, right, then at the elementary level, that device would be kept in the backpack. The backpack would then be stored in the classroom designated area, right? And that varies because it depends on the classroom, right? From a secondary perspective, if family chooses to have their child bring in their device to and from school, right, that device then would be kept in the student's locker throughout the school day. And the exception to that would be, again, the Chromebook, right, issued device, and of course, any sort of documented medical needs, right, that we already have in play with the student's IP or the student's 504. In terms of enforcement, right, this is all faculty members, right, all staff members are responsible for enforcement. This is a law, right, that every school district has to adopt a policy specifically in terms of for this. So everyone, right, will be enforcing this throughout the entire district, right? Clear expectations, obviously, and accountability across buildings, and consistency and enforcement is key to, obviously, the success of the implementation of not just this policy, but this law. In the beginning of the school year, we are anticipating that maybe there may be some violations to this. I don't mean to, joke, but, again, being realistic, right? It is important for everyone to understand that this is black and white, right? It is law, right? And we must comply by this. So from a phase 1 perspective, right, of course, obviously, day 1, so after the policy is adopted, we're going to communicate that out, and I'll share that in the next couple of slides, right? Very beginning, right, student is walking down the hallway and they have their cell phone. And by the way, the ban is all day long, right? So it's not just within the classroom. It is bell to bell, and bell is actually explicitly defined within the law. That does include the cafeteria, that does include study hall, that does include hallways, right? Its intention, right, in addition to improving, focus, attention, is also student engagement, to disconnect students, right, in terms of in terms of being on the devices. So it does include hallways, it does include the cafeteria, and it does include study hall. So verbal warning, right, the device would then be secured in the office, right? The parent would be notified, and the student would then retrieve, right, and get their cell phone back at the end of the day. Right, so I'm going to just repeat that, right? Initially, at the very onset, right, again, the student is reminded of the policy of the law, right? The student would be asked for the cell phone. It will be kept in a designated locked area in one of the school's main offices, and the student would get their cell phone at the end of the day, right? Let's say that student, the next day or a couple days later, right, the same student has their device out. Same process again, another warning, right? The device is secured and is kept in the main office in a locked location. The parent is called. In this case, the parent will need to retrieve the cell phone, okay? Let's say there's a third violation, right? Then we're moving through in terms of the overall code of conduct, right? So we're talking about the same as a prior phase, except that now we're looking at discipline in terms of after-school detention, right? If it continues, then we are looking at in-school suspension at the secondary level. And again, hopefully that doesn't happen, right? But ultimately, if we have repeated offenses, right, and we're going through the code of conduct process and this outlined here, right? Now we're also talking insubordination, right? We're talking about repeated insubordination that have to be addressed in terms of, obviously, through the code of conduct. And ultimately, that privilege, right, of having the phone is going to be completely revoked, and it would have to be turning it in every day and picking it up at the end of the day, right? Because there's been multiple attempts at following in terms of the rules that have been outlined, right, in order for us to comply with this requirement. Next slide, please. New York State, they call it New York State Distraction-Free Schools funding, right, has been issued will be issued to school districts to help support in this implementation year 1. For us specifically, we are supposed to receive about $19,000 to help kick this off year 1. In our case, in general, everyone has to use the funds, right, to support the policy implementation. And again, the deadline for submission is in a couple of days, right? So once we adopt the policy, I'll share with you on the next slide. Next slide, please. We would indicate in terms of the use of the funds. So in our case, and it will be pretty similar in other school districts as well, we will be purchasing, there are these phone locker storage units, right, for offices in which when a phone is confiscated, right, would be placed there and would be locked. So we're looking at purchasing those for the junior high school, senior high school, well, for all, right, buildings. We are looking at cell phone deans to support in terms of the enforcement, right? The phone calls, the retrieving of the phones, the reissuing the phones. And again, hopefully, again, once everyone sees and understands this is what it is, right? Across the board, all school districts then quickly, become used to the new way, right, of not having cell phones during the school day. And the other piece is providing workshops for families, students, and staff, right, on understanding and treating problematic screen use in children. I will say, regardless of how you feel about kind of a child having the phone, there's a lot of data right now that speaks specifically to this, right? There's the school day piece, but there's also, in general, right, the amount of screen time of children of all ages, all day long, all evening long, all into the hours of the night, right? And the impact that that is having on socialization, on engagement, on mental health. It really, the list goes on, right? Self-image, it really is astounding, you know, to when you dive into this world, right? And the impact that the time, not just in terms of the screen time, but what they're watching and what they're doing and the amount of time that they're spending on that. So we also do want to, we didn't create this law, right? It was, you know, we have to comply with it. But in addition to that, we are an educational entity and we want to spend some time and use some of these funds to offer some of those workshops for our families. Next slide, please. So the legal and compliance requirements for us, we have to adopt and approve this policy. We have to post the policy on our district website. We have to communicate the policy, obviously, to all of our stakeholders. We then have to submit it. There's a system called the NYSCD Monitoring and Vendoring System, in which a lot of our school district reports, particularly during the summer, are submitted through this portal. So we have to submit some information there, and we also have to share how we will utilize the funding that's being assigned to us. That has to all be done by the end of this week. Next slide, please. Most of this is redundant. The main piece that I wanted to reiterate here, right, is that we do want to, you know, in the beginning of the school year, right, communicate information and have sign off, right, in terms of understanding, you know, in terms of what this is. I mentioned that we're going to submit it through the system. We do need to internally post, right, for dean positions. We have to order the storage units. Again, these are just some logistical pieces, coordinate workshops, and of course, obviously, immediately begin to enforce the new law this September. Okay. Take a breath, drink.
It's going to be a rough beginning.
Maybe not.
Oh, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. I think the
Questions?
key is not, you know, don't put the district in a position to have to enforce it.
Correct.
That's going to be the key thing. Everybody's going to have their own take on what they should be entitled to do, what they're going to tell their kids to do, what they tolerate. Just don't let the district have to enforce it.
Yeah.
Dr. Farrelly, will the dean position be posted just for a cell phone, or is that a?
So great question. So
cell
I
phones
actually,
are
to be quite honest, I trust, we've spoken about both, right? So we have a meeting coming up with our secondary administrators.
Right.
Specifically in terms of that, I asked them to just take a moment to think about that, right? Because separating it out, we need more people, right? Like, you know, you divide the funds out. So the funds is still gonna total the same amount, right? But,
So that would
you
come
divide
out
out,
of the $19,000
but then,
funds.
yeah, that would come out in terms of there, right? What we're looking to utilize is to support that. The one concept is kind of more for current, right? Like the same number of deans, right? And then the concept is deans specifically in terms of for this. So quite honestly, we're weighing both of those out. And specifically the secondary administrators are talking with some of their building teams. And at the end of this week, we're gonna circle back around to that topic of which way do they feel, right, is, you know, which way they'd like to go, and you know, we may need to kind of readjust. The other thing is, you know, having enough people interested too, right? So that may
Because right
be
now,
the
we're
answer.
short, right, we're short on deans.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is gonna add.
That's what I'm saying, right? It may not, you know, in some ways you can say, oh, you know what, having separate ones only focus on that, but then that means we need more people, right? And we may not have that, so not sure yet.
So we were short on applicants of deans.
On the initial,
Yeah.
right, exactly, the initial route. That's why having multiple, but maybe some may be interested in focusing on this aspect of dean work and maybe not others,
Well, it might
right?
not
So
be
that
so
was another
demanding.
thing. So, hopefully, exactly.
It will get better, I would think,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
as you progress through the grades. I think there's less of a culture shock here for the junior high school kids.
I think they're already implementing it in the
Right,
junior high. I
so
don't think there's a
I
real
think
big
you're
cell
looking
phone
at-
problem.
Yeah.
You
High
know,
school.
filtering out the.
So that was the general message throughout most of Long Island, like the Long Island kind of cohort meetings, right? That for the most part, the middle schools have something
Right.
similar, right, in play throughout Long Island. It's definitely in terms of the high school, right, like where that's not the case throughout Long Island, yeah, yeah.
Dr. Farrelly?
Yes, sir.
Since this mandate came down from the governor's office, is there a consequence if a district did not comply?
You mean if the district doesn't abide by the law?
Yeah,
I could look into
I'm just sure
specifically
normally
what.
they take state aid away if you don't
Well,
comply with certain things.
Well, generally, right, specifically for all of the funding that we receive in state aid, right? So during the August and September reports from the business office, there are a slew of attestations, right, that I have to check off and sign off on, and those are all relating to laws and regulations. And so we mentioned beforehand APPR, right, just in terms of as an example. So I would envision that that document, that online portal with all those, we've complied, we've complied, I would envision that that probably will now include this, right? But I'll let you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
What
Questions?
what would happen in that situation is gonna go back to the masks. Remember when there was those districts that were announcing at their meetings, they're voting to not comply with the mask law?
Right.
And then by the following Monday, they were sending notices to parents.
Saying
that-
comply with the
that
masks,
you have to wear the
yes.
mask tomorrow, because the phone rang. And, you know, we just witnessed an oath today. So we could easily be replaced, you know. We're not, there's nothing in, you know, that requires us to be here, except the Department of Education and the Board of Regents approved us to be here. So that's probably what would happen. It would go to funds, it would go to board, it would become a series of threats.
My question just goes out there, I'm in favor of this 100%.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
the best thing, but I'm just curious if like anything else, they're always looking to take money away from the schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever
it would
may
come
be.
to that.
Wasn't
Yeah.
sure if there was
Probably
a
align with
set
that.
consequence
We-
put in
that's-
line.
That's usually their step, right? Yeah, that's the progression.
That's
You'll
the
get
only thing they
warning,
have.
phone call, you get the letter.
Inspectors coming into the schools though to make sure that we're abiding by these rules.
Correct. You have to report though, right? You'll be reporting periodically the progress of
Yes,
the.
yeah, so I'm not sure what the reporting looks like yet, right, but through the portal, it does indicate that at certain points, I will need to submit some reports, and it also indicates that I'll also have to, put on the website, right, periodic, you know, like kind of whatever those reports are, that I have to, you know, publicize them and put them on the website as well. I guess in terms of, compliance or violations or, you know, I don't know, something, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know what that looks like, yeah. Yeah.
Sure, it'll be time consuming.
I have one question.
Yes.
Does this, I know it's bell to bell, right?
Yes.
On a traditional school day. But what about some of the, like for example, the Europe trips and things like that? Does that fall outside now of the bell to bell? Because, I mean, they're,
So
Because the
the
kids are gonna
ETF Europe trip is happening, would be happening during the February break or the April break, right?
so
So
that it doesn't
that's
apply,
not,
right? Even
yep,
though it's
that's
during
separate,
school?
yeah. So
Okay.
that's even, again, parent funded through the, you know,
Yep.
going away February break, April break, that's different. Yep,
What?
that's different.
What about the field
They
trips?
do have,
On field trips. Would they be able to have their phone on a field trip?
I will dig in to see if there's a specific line. I would say that it's the same concept, right? But we can look into that a little bit more. Yep.
I also thought they take their pictures with the phones, that's why I was wondering.
Like the middle school always went to Boston. You know,
Yes.
it's that, you know,
Right, Boston.
it's an overnighter,
Mm-hmm.
you know, parents are gonna, that's just one thing to look at also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
There's also sports teams leaving earlier in the day that don't get back to later in the day, so it kind of falls in line with what you're saying with field
Yeah, there
trips.
definitely are gonna be some logistical pieces end of the day pieces that we're gonna have to, you know, all work out.
Dr. Farrelly, Grace brought up a good point.
Yes.
I was just thinking about how then if I'm going, or not just me, if
Mhm,
students are
yes.
going to their locker before first period and then after ninth period, that's adding, I mean, it might not seem like that much time, but it's adding time at the end of the day
Yes.
to the beginning and end of the school day. So
Yes.
would time be like
Allotted.
Great
allotted
question,
for
right?
that?
So the junior high school and senior high school admin team, they were talking about exactly that, and particularly in the beginning of the year, having some time for students to practice the opening and the closing, right, of the lockers, which generally happens at the middle school level, but not necessarily at the secondary level, right? But accounting for that, the other piece is, in particular, the first few days, I don't know how many yet, right? But accounting for that, where there's kind of almost like an earlier staged out to allow students the time to go to their locker, because it may take them 2 or 3 times to get that, so that we don't have too much of a delay with the buses waiting, right? So, yes, they definitely recognize that it's going to add some time there. So they're also exploring kind of the homeroom concept and where that is, right, in terms of which period. So the timing concept, definitely on their radar, that it will absolutely add a little bit of time here, you know, like, and a little bit of time at the end, because now everyone will need to go to their locker
Because
to
a
get
lot of
it and then
people
get to their bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably don't use their locker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a single person that uses their locker in the high school.
In the junior high
So-
also, I would say,
Yeah.
right?
So,
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that, right, that now, especially in particular in terms of the high school, right, that our upperclassmen, right, haven't been accustomed to utilizing their locker.
Right.
Yep. So we're gonna have to go back to the
Yeah.
practice how to do the locker, like these, yes,
I think, yeah.
yes,
It'll definitely be a culture shock,
absolutely.
but we're not alone.
Everywhere, nope, the whole state,
Yeah.
all of New York
Yeah.
State is gonna go through the same culture shock, definitely, absolutely. Okay, that's it, and then we have our third presentation, so we're going to pivot to our third presentation of the night. Mr. Al, if I can ask you to join us in the front also, Mike. We're gonna all, you, Mr. Al, Mike.
You were hoping.
All right.
All right, so this is gonna be a team approach, right? It is a pretty comprehensive presentation. We're certainly not going to read everything off of these. Every year, right, our district, we adopt our district goals, our superintendent goals, our board goals, right? And in addition to that, we have a strategic plan, right, that we also adopt.
You are good at these.
So when we look at our strategic plan, the history of our strategic plan, I forget which year. Patty, were you on that committee when we first did it? I think so, yeah. So we had, I don't know, there were many people that were involved in the initial development of the strategic plan. We divided into, several different categories, and we established a 5-year strategic plan with goals and actions to support those. Then throughout the years, we kept continuing, where are we? It was evaluated every year. This is ongoing. Oh, this was a one and done. We remove that, and then we continue to make necessary adjustments. So where we're at now, right, and the kind of our last strategic plan, and I wouldn't say it ended, but it's never an ending document type thing, right, was until now 2025, right? So I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a little bit of a step back, right, and highlight some things throughout the last 10 years across the various different departments, and also highlight some areas of, as we move forward in the next couple of years, right, that we should work on, that we should keep an eye out. It may not necessarily be something that we're going to work on next year, but it is something that we need to work on in a couple of years, right? Again, strategic planning and moving forward. So overall, when we think back, right, what are some challenges, right, that immediately come to mind, not just for our district in this case, right, but for many districts, is the overall impact of COVID, right, on students, families, employees, and school systems. And again, that line alone, we can break it up into so many different areas, but we know that obviously this had an impact. The tax cap, right, in school district budgets. Prior to the tax cap, every school district established, okay, here are all of our needs, here are our expenditures, oh, and this is what our tax cap levy is, and then it was presented to the community. Once the tax cap requirement came in, that flipped things around. Here is your levy, right, and then all school districts, right, work to try and stay within that, right, if they're able to, and make necessary adjustments there. The uncertainty in federal and state aid, we know that, in particularly for our district, right, because we are a school district that relies so much on state aid. Unfunded state mandates, here we go, we just brought up a small one, a big one, right? And they're giving us some funding for it. That's for the first year. Is it gonna be the next year? We don't know, right? Of course, it's not accounted in there, all of the amount of time and effort, right, in the implementation of that. Employee benefits, year after year, I shared with the board, we're gonna put together a nice little folder for them that shows, that has all of the newsletters for the last 10 years. It really is jarring, right, to kind of go through that and see where some of the major increases in the budget were, right? And one of the main pieces is employee benefits and health insurance, right? And the drastic costs from year to year and the drastic increases there. In our case, right, and, again, employee positions, abolished due to enrollment and or budget constraints, right? That has been happening in terms of throughout the year, and you'll see some of the data points that Mr. Hanley will bring up in terms of our number of employees in our district. That does have an impact in the district in different ways. And that was necessary because of declining enrollment, but it does have an overall impact. Enrollment decline, again, not unique to WB, but certainly, again, a factor and a challenge for us, as that plays a direct role in aid, particularly when you have less students, but you have maybe higher needs, right? In particular, special education needs. Elementary school consolidation, right? The emotional challenges, right, of that change. And that was, again, most recently in terms of in the past year. And as we look forward into next year, across the board, increased mental health needs for our students, our staff, and our community. Increased student services needs, supports, and costs, and we're going to talk about that in one of the later slides. Time and resources for professional development is huge. We don't have a lot of time for it, and we have such great need for professional development, and we're going to highlight that in different areas. Meeting the needs of our students with special needs, right, both in district and in out-of-district locations. Student loss and tragedies, right? Most recently, and again, unfortunately, a number of times throughout the last couple of years, we've lost students, we've lost employees, we've had tragedies. All of that, in one way or another, has had an impact on our district. In general, doing more with less, right? When we look at in terms of our overall, employees, we don't have curriculum directors, right? Our deans, we've made shifts, right, to them where they don't have release periods. Our department chairs, same thing, full days, no release periods, right? Fewer paraprofessionals in the hallways. You remember a couple years ago were reduced there, but our overall paraprofessional needs from a special ed point of view have increased. Custodial team, same thing, doing more with less. Think about everything that's happening this summer with the change in our consolidation, and we have the same number, actually less, because we have some leaves, right, from our buildings and grounds perspective. Office assistants, again, a limited increase in resources, right, to support the added demands. Next slide, please. So moving forward, right, we want to continue to move forward, right, with strategic purpose, right? We want to align, right, our actions align what we're doing and what we're focused on, right, on our goals and our mission and what we want to do as a district, right, with clarity. Understanding in terms of across the board the expectations and communicating those out, right? When you look at in terms of our district and you look at the amount of information on our website that we have there, at some point we're going to have a new one also, right? And you compare it to other places, we do provide a lot of information out there and a lot of resources to our families. So continuing to not just do that, but do more, right? With courage, right? Informed, sometimes difficult decisions, right? Committing funds to where we need to commit funds, and sometimes that, again, difficult decisions. With support, right? Truly listening, right? As opposed to listening to immediately try and give a response, right? To understand in terms of the overall needs of our district and resources, and of course with collaboration, right? Working as a team to achieve our common goals. So we want to absolutely continue with our governance areas, right? We want to, and there's no one here that, right, would disagree with having a strategic plan, continuing to have one in place, right? Continuing to communicate those, ensuring that those are all aligned, the board, the superintendent, right, and our employees, and continuing to use SQRC, our quality, review council that has representatives from different stakeholders, being part of that process to provide feedback, conversations on what should continue, what's completed, what should we consider adding, right? Continuing that process. Continuing to communicate, I mentioned this beforehand, right, through the use of social media, Parent Square, we're going to have a new website soon, right, and newsletters that we recently added, right. We want to continue to push information out so that everyone can be updated on what's happening, right, within our walls. We want to continue to involve our community and invite them, right, to different district events, those partnerships with those outside organizations, that we've established and started as a result of this, right? Continuing those and enhancing those. And again, we want to celebrate and publicize, right, our students, our alumni, our staff, our faculty, right, through all those different venues. By the way, across the board, there's a lot of information we're gonna go through. Tomorrow, I will be I put together kind of a quick little survey, right, for the group, so that everyone can just, as you digest everything, and I know the board has had this as well, anything that comes to mind under any of these categories, just include them there, right? Oh, you know what, I also thought of this, or I thought of that, right? So that no one feels kind of the pressure of like right now. We're going to continue this topic during our next board meeting as well, and then I'll pull through any of the input, any suggestions that are provided through that quick little, questionnaire survey, as part of that process as well. Next slide, please. In the area of technology and innovation, just taking a little bit of a look back, right? I remember sitting with a former director and saying, I want to get to the point where every student has a Chromebook. I distinctly remember that meeting in my office, and I was like, I know this district has it, and I know this district has it. I want us to get to that point. Let's come up with a plan, and we came up with a multi-year process. We were in year 4 of that process, and then COVID hit, and then everyone, right? But again, as a district, not just, everyone has district-issued devices. Our smart boards, right, through various different funding sources, we have them throughout the district. We also have a budget line to replace those. Enhanced cybersecurity systems. We've had board presentations and meetings on that, and that continues to evolve. Duo systems, the authentication, multiple sign-ons, I should say. Device monitoring line-wise, we know what that is, right? Our students use these devices. As a district, we monitor those and we get alerts. Parents also are part of that process, right? If a student is looking something up that is of concern, right? We establish that. Wi-Fi. Communications, we enhance with Parent Square. We're a Google district. Cameras on school buses. Again, these are just a few areas. Live streaming events that weren't in place, right, 10 years ago. Just some perspective, in 2015-16, our school budget for tech was $1.3 million. This school year is $2.6 million, plus the use of grants, plus E-rate funding, right, to support our district-wide, technology initiatives. Next slide, please. So from a technology perspective, where do we want to go? I'm going to highlight specifically one main area on the bottom. Obviously, we want to continue to enhance our cybersecurity, right, across the board. The one main area I want to focus on is the bottom one. We want to develop and implement district-wide framework, right, that supports and equips all staff, right, with knowledge, tools. This is that PD piece, right, and guidance to use applications. When you think about it, and Mr. Payne and I were chatting about this, right, textbooks, right, they're all shifting to what? Online, right, and software programs, and then all these added programs built into the traditional textbook, right? That's all online now, right? That all is in need of professional development, right? We use translation programs, AI, right, to support instructional excellence and also streamline systems and operations. So that's a big goal for us, right, is in terms of professional development. Again, that's not a 1 year, right? That's an ongoing piece that we want to focus on and have some added language as a result of some input from our SQRC.
All right. How's it going?
That's Michael on the picture.
That's our facilities mascot. That we were trying to come up with a mascot for the department. That's what made the final cut.
He found it, by the way. I did not, okay?
It was provided. I'm here to present the facilities portion of the planning presentation. So we're looking at the first slide here at the 10-year look back and some of the upgrades that were done through various funding sources, including the bonds and the energy performance contract, which is still currently taking place. So the upgrades that were made, as are bulleted, are the air conditioner installations in the classrooms. We did the double door vestibules for the entry control points to each one of the buildings. Elementary playgrounds were updated, specifically K-5. Door replacements, steam pipes, cabinet casework replacements, specifically, I believe, in the family consumer science of the high school.
Yes.
We've made art room upgrades, the turf upgrades to both junior high school and senior high school field. The senior high school and front loop was done, repavement, South Bay water line, senior high school roof, was last year's capital project that we knocked out. Junior high school Eagle Hall renovations, LED lighting upgrades, and the solar panels are all pretty much the big things that we accomplished in the last 10 years for facilities.
There are a lot more. Those are more of the grander, bigger scale topics.
Just looking at the next slide, please. Facilities executive summary. In 2015, the district rolled out a scope of work through the capital bond that included new door surfacing, including parking lots, drainage, and sidewalks for most of the surfacing area of our parking lot. So that includes curb lines, sidewalks, things like that, all in pretty decent shape. The current energy performance contract that's taking place is upgrading things like the building envelope, which is the insulation of the building, the building management system, which is the component that controls our boiler operations, our air conditioning operations. All of that is also that software program that controls that is being upgraded. The solar panels are on the roof. They just finished actually the high school, I think maybe last week, and we're waiting for PSE&G to allow us to put those on the grid. So all of that is great for our energy consumption, and we're looking to see things back from that. The 2024, the senior high school, and the roof was replaced here on the administration building as well as the high school, so that the roof had a fresh surface for those panels to be installed. Buildings and Grounds Department began to take a little bit more attention to preventative maintenance initiatives. So, we're trying to get skilled labor in our maintenance department. We recently did hire an employee who has a master electrician's license, and it's been an incredible step forward for us to try to take a lot of the workload that we would typically pay prevailing wage vendors and bring that in-house and try to start to begin the process of offsetting those costs for us so we can be a little bit more self-reliant here. Buildings and Grounds Department also did an upgrade to the building management system, the way that we ticket our maintenance requests. So teachers, anyone in this room can basically put in a work request if they see an issue. And what that software allows us to do as well is develop a preventative maintenance program through like an asset tagging. So we can tag an asset, we can look over time to see what we're spending on, let's say, maintaining one air conditioning unit, rooftop unit on South Bay, let's say. We get an asset profile on it, and then that's gonna drive our capital, our 5-year plan to start to look at what we would replace, right? So this is now using data to drive those decisions. How much money are we spending on one unit constantly? We're gonna prioritize replacing that unit off of one that may be at the same age, but we're just not quite dumping the same amount of money into. Next slide, please. Health and safety operations, that's obviously our number one goal, right, is the health and safety of all students, staff, and stakeholders. So, on a daily basis, our staff in the custodial and maintenance department, we're cleaning, disinfecting. We're doing parking lot repairs. We do snow removal operations, obviously, when it's that season. We begun some of the exhaust fan motor replacements on the roof of the high school to try to, get better indoor air quality. District-wide air conditioning installation, we touched on that. Every single classroom in our district today has an air conditioning window unit, which is fantastic for IEP students that require that accommodation, as well as the fact that now we're entering on September 1st the maximum temperature in classrooms. So we're well prepared to deal with that new law that's coming out that's going to start this September. And next slide. Oh, we're there. We're on the same page. EPC work continues, as I said. We're looking at those energy sources that do particularly have the highest rate of expenditure for our department. Solar panels, again, are hopefully going to offset the electric bill. We're looking at the pneumatic controls and things like that control our thermostatic systems. Some of them are pneumatic, some of them are DDI or electric controls. The DDI ones are newer technology and they're more accurate. So down the road, I think we're going to start looking at how we can possibly make those modifications and upgrades as well. Again, this next slide here is just a shot of the roof fans. We also, in the bottom right, you can see a tankless water unit, water heating unit, more energy efficient. Currently, there's a grant on them as well. We just installed one at Santapog because we had the water heater fail on us there, so we just put one in. And, again, tying that into the preventative maintenance, new equipment, we want to make sure that our group, our unit is trained on descaling, flushing that unit, knowing what the manufacturer's specifications are telling us to do to keep the longevity of that unit as solid as possible. New action for health and safety. One of the things that we saw, we had an opportunity to do during the consolidation was, look at the space that we were currently using. And it was determined that the maintenance department should relocate out of the senior high school auto shop as they were operating out of. So we moved them into Nill Street. That opened up our maintenance department or ex-maintenance department here for central district storage. So as we go through our consolidation plan, we were able to store a lot of our equipment and then make a determination of what was valuable to the district and what we can start offsetting or offloading. That also came under health and safety as well, because ultimately having the maintenance department in our operation of the high school, I think, was potentially a liability issue for us, just as the garbage truck, let's say, is here, or some of the heavier trucking that we have, because the guys are in on their break and things like that. So it was a very good idea and logical to just move them into an area that wasn't involved in the instructional side of our operation here in the district. So we're on goals now. Our goal is to improve our facilities to reduce waste and energy and look to upgrade our facilities in order to compete in the 21st century. So the actions that we currently have is we're reviewing outstanding items in the 5-year capital improvement plan. And our next 5-year building condition survey, I believe, is due in 2027. And Mr. Grillo, who was our district architect who was here earlier, will be, conducting that walkthrough with us. And we're really looking to target some of the critical asset things that we discussed. The district's going to complete its energy performance contract. It's due to, I think, wrap up in April of 2026. Currently, and I'm knocking on wood, we are ahead of schedule. I'm hoping maybe this December that we can look at wrapping this job up. So we'll see what happens there. Facilities upgrades and needed concerns. This is just sort of a thing that we discussed more recently that, now that I've been around a little while, I've kind of got a good handle on what we've got for critical assets. So as this is stating here, we've taken many proactive steps, but there are critical infrastructure concerns that we still have. The age of our boilers, the fire and burglar alarm systems are all in need of upgrades. And some of the unit ventilators are still, these ones here are new, but some of the older ones, specifically at the junior high school and Santa Paga Elementary School, are eventually going to need to be upgraded. They're more energy efficient. There's even grants out there, or in time, the lighting grant is going away, so more grants are being utilized in things like air conditioners and things like that. So we are, again, addressing these things through our infrastructure modernization plan, and we're looking at the best ways that we can afford to do this, whether it's through another EPC, or Victoria and I were talking about maybe a maintenance capital fund that we can start to squirrel away money so we can absorb some of these larger expenditures without going to capital or in concert with capital and things like that. Next slide. Assessment of critical facilities needs. Again, we spent $100,000 on air conditioners. I think it was 22 or 23. And one of the concerns is that we are not necessarily provisioned or budgeted to replace those units as they come to end of life. We do have time. The other thing is that we put them into 3/4-inch plywood panels. Some of those panels are on the second and third floor of our secondary buildings. In time, I want to make sure that our staff is inspecting those panels because they're obviously at an elevation and it's a safety concern. Some of the RTU units, the rooftop units, are in regular repair or breaking down now as well. So again, when we see that, we know it's time. We're spending more money repairing them than over, let's say, a 12 to 24-month period where we would just replace the unit. Of course, there's more to it than just snap your fingers and replace the unit. So the strategic plan here is we will budget for AC unit replacements in the 26 and 27 school year and address those accordingly. Getting to the fire monitoring system, the FCI and the Honeywell panels are in need of some upgrades. Junior high school and South Bay were upgraded, so they have a cellular connectivity. A lot of our panels are still hardwired into the telephone system. Most are getting away from that, and they need a cellular adaptation to communicate. So, again, our strategic plan will be looking at grant opportunities and other funding sources to continue that. Absorbing one or two of those upgrades a year isn't, an issue, but in the event that everything is terminal, that technology ceases to function, we're going to be looking at an expenditure situation for our department. Burglar systems, same thing. Most of them are well past their life expectancy. Some of them don't have a no-com element to them where they're not communicating. So we did get a quote of $104,000 a year ago to refurbish the entire system for intrusion monitoring. It's there. It's something to discuss, but again, we'll look for ways and revenue to be able to execute that. The next one, the garbage carting service. So currently, we do the carting ourselves for all of our waste removal. We have a garbage truck, I think it's a 2013. I did a cost analysis on that earlier in the year. One of the things that stood out is the replacement for that vehicle is about $235,000 to $250,000 just for the vehicle. We did receive a quote from Winter Brothers because typically most of the municipalities in Babylon are utilizing their carting service. So our annual carting estimate for each of the buildings was $98,000 for the entire school year. And, we have an offset of that now with the lease agreement at Forest Avenue. So $7,800 of that is now reduced because they're going to absorb the cost of that service. It would help us out aesthetically. If you do drive through the district, the garbage is placed outside of the building on the ground. It's, in some schools, it has to be out front. Sanapog is one of those buildings where right on Herzl Boulevard, you're going to see that. It is unsightly. There is food waste in there. It does leak. There's a couple of elements there that I think at some point we, as a district, want to review that and possibly go for a service. I also want to just mention the opportunity cost. As a director who's really geared to doing more in-house work, the opportunity cost of having a mechanic title operate a refuse truck is, in a way, taking away an initiative that I'm looking to do where we have trained skill sets at that title level. So it's just, again, it's something to consider and I think revisit in the future as this truck starts to age out. Strategic plan, we're considering shifting to a carting service. We'll start to look at that next year and see where we are with the price points. Boilers and other associated equipment, the flame burners. So again, those units are 20 to 25 years old. They're steam boilers, and they have about a 20-year life expectancy on them. We've maintained them pretty well. Some of them look great. They're cast iron. We do a preventative maintenance where the guys flush out the mud drums on the bottom, but they're starting to corrode because ultimately, the water is mineralized and it starts to oxidize and break down the boiler system. So we're actually currently doing our loss prevention inspection, which is done through NYSER, and Hartford Steam Boiler conducts that on their behalf. So I get a report each year of some of the deficiencies with our boiler systems and what actions we have to take. So we're always able to absorb that, but as these systems start to degrade further, it's again something that we're looking to address before we hit, it hits a point of critical mass. So fortunately, the vacuum pumps were replaced. That's the system that draws that condensation back into the tank. It's already demineralized water. We want that to burn that off again into steam. And those are all in great condition. The steam traps were done during our EPC. Those have, again, a 5 to 7 year lifespan, so we're all good with our efficiency of our system. It's now just the actual pressure vessels that are starting to, corrode to a point where they're becoming a little bit more costly to maintain. So we do have a plan to look at an energy performance contract maybe after we wrap this one up, and if the district has an appetite for another phase, that we can potentially incorporate the expense of those units into something like that where we can offset it through some of the programs out there.
For these areas and these slides here, we're going to set up a separate board meeting, right, to dive deeper into those, right? Because obviously, you know, these are larger scale, right, needs, right, that we have to plan for in the future. And like Mike said, either maybe we progress to another APC, right? We have to talk about in terms of a timeline, talk about a funding source, right, for these major big ticket items.
Yeah, perfect. Finally, thermostatic controls. I touched on this earlier, the pneumatics versus the DDI. We were able to put some of those online. You know, at some point, we're going to want to upgrade to something a little bit more sophisticated that regulates some of these units because it's going to just be more energy efficient for us. It's going to get that expenditure level down on the gas bill and the heat bill, you know, and ultimately that's really where all of this is going. So the building management system too, it's going to be more sophisticated, it's going to be centralized, so we can look probably from a phone app what we're doing for our energy. So I'm excited that these steps are in place, and we're going to start getting this going where we make improvements to that system. I know I've taken a lot of your time on facilities. I could probably do another 45 minutes.
No,
but
another
I won't
5
do
hours
that
and
to
45
you.
minutes, yeah.
Ultimately, the team that I have is awesome. They're really hard workers, all of them, custodial and maintenance staff. And I can't thank them enough for what they do and the jobs that they do take on to try to get us more, you know, self-sufficient and self-reliant and away from some of the expenditures of vendors. So I got to really shout them out today. Thank you so much.
Definitely, and
I'll
Mike,
be
we were
in the
just
side for your
chatting
questions.
about, in addition to the normal summer, right, happenings, right, from a buildings and grounds perspective, our team has taken on a whole other aspect, right? You know, he didn't highlight it, but when he mentioned in terms of the moving of one department to another, the amount of actual work, right, that went into moving from here to Mill Street so that we can have this space functioning for all the other moves happening in the district. And that is still happening, right, throughout the school district. Is just incredible, right, to walk through and see these rooms filled with pallets of stuff that obviously didn't magically happen with the same number. I can't even say the same number of staff members because we're down some, right, with less people, right, in terms of last summer. So again, a huge kudos and thank you to the whole department.
Thank you. Excellent.
So we're going to continue now with our curriculum instruction, student services, student assessments. I'm going to ask Mr. Payne to take over from here.
Thank you, Dr. Farrelly. I will say, Mr. Legidis, I can attest that you could have spent another 45 minutes, and I'm thankful that you didn't. However, you're never going to get a cooler term than pneumatic thermostatic control system. That was very nicely done on that last slide. So you will not hear that from me. So we'll just go over some basic numbers, a little more boring, but you can see the West Babylon, we'll skip a slide. The enrollment, obviously, from year 2000. I started here in 2001. I do remember even past 2001, for those that were here, I think we had a slight uptick from there, and then we went down again, obviously, until 2025. Down a significant number of students, and then 2035, BOCES projections down even more. You can skip to the next slide, please. You could see falling roughly in line with Suffolk County and the rest of New York State. West Babylon at -12, Suffolk County -10, New York State, rest of the state -10. So there is a decline across the board. We'll skip one more slide, please. This is in-district numbers. I'm going to break this down in just a minute to, with just the students with disabilities, to total percentages, but you can get a sort of a historical perspective here of some slight demographic changes in our ethnicity in our district. You know, I think predominantly around Hispanic and white becomes the biggest differences. There are a lot of similarities with some of the other New York State recognized groups. And even as we're going through our English language learners is another big jump there. Economically disadvantaged, that fluctuates year to year we were talking about, so not so much of a change there. Skip the slide, please. So before, if you saw that other slide, we had talked about our students with disabilities as an in-district piece. Here's an out-of-district piece because we know some of our students with disabilities are serviced outside of the district, and that has an impact on the budget. So you could see West Babylon from 2015 and 16 at about a 16 percentage point rate. 23, 24 last year, 21.6, and currently we're over 22%. I think the New York State recommendation, or, you know, that never follows that way, right, is around 15% for students with disabilities. There's no set formula, but Long Island is generally a little higher at 17 or 18%. You could skip a slide. So now some metrics on how we measure ourselves. Graduation rate, of course, very important. This is based on a 5-year cohort, but we are, of course, increasing our graduation rates, which is a metric we should be measuring ourselves by. You could push a slide forward, as well as some things that we've done in the past 10 years, right? Since, like I said, I've been in the district a long time, but since I've been lucky enough to be part of this central office team, we have almost completely revamped our elementary curriculum. In fact, we have revamped it. We're just in the later stages of our literacy program for our grades 3, which is this year, 4 and 5. But every single curricular program on the elementary level is revamped. The high school, we've offered a tremendous number of selected AP classes, as well as changed our electives. The junior high school, we're in the process of working on some of the lab classes and what's offered there, although I know under specific department leaders, Dr. Neville was there, we have changed some of the electives there and modified some of the programs. Obviously, when you're talking about a curricular program, right, you want students to be safe, you want them to be comfortable, and you want them to be learning, right? Those are the 3 things. So, of course, we're proud of the things that we've done social emotionally for our students, the safety pieces that we've put in, of course, student discipline and things like that, and as we saw with the cell phone presentation, are all important things that we continue to look at. You could skip one more. These are other things that we've looked at over the past 10 years. I'm not going to read each one of them, but you certainly are all very familiar with them. As part of this process, Dr. Farrelly had us review the strategic plan as it currently exists. These are some changes that were made to the existing plan. A few things were taken out because they were redundant. You could see some specific changes that were made here. Really just very specific changes that aren't major impacts, but regarding particular professional development plans, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Looking at some of the importance of changing how we're measuring student performance at the high school, as well as what we're looking at, the shift from college institutions from some of these standardized tests to other measures is something we took into consideration. And a few athletic pieces, right? Some of the community expectations and requirements from Section 11, as well as educating our transitioning students into some of the academic eligibility pieces becomes an important component of students participating in our athletic program. So those are changes we looked at as part of the current strategic plan. And then if we could skip a slide, these are areas of focus for us to continue to look at our strategic plan and to make changes. It's obvious to say, right? Curriculum, instruction, we have to look at our New York State assessment results, and that's grades 3-8 as well as our Regents results. Some of that, as Dr. Farrelly had mentioned earlier, is going to center around adequate professional development and curricular supports for our teachers, for our support staff, for our administrators, as well as meeting students' need from an intervention perspective, which is what we probably have heard of as those lab classes, whether they be at the elementary level or the junior high school level. You can't educate students unless they're here, right? So attendance becomes a real important piece that we're looking at. And then we touched upon these numbers, but particularly looking at our special education program, right? The resources, how we're going through meeting compliance and some of the supports we give, how we're classifying students and how we're providing those supports have to be part of our strategic plan for the future and our goals. And then finally, as I mentioned, the last part, safety, right? Our safety of our students, not just from the wonderful job our security team does in all of our buildings, but just from monitoring what our students are doing and the behavior pieces, an increased look at that. And you've seen some of the conversations we've had centered around conversations like deans, hallway support, and of course what Dr. Farrelly had presented tonight with the cell phone change. So that was a little shorter than 45 minutes. But Mr. Hanley will make it up for me, I'm sure.
Before Mr. Hanley jumps on, I do want to just share one quick tidbit, right, on the graduation piece, right? So this was data, like if you look at in terms of our New York State report card, right? I spoke to Mr. O'Leary, not official yet, but this past graduating class is 97% graduation rate. Yep. So this most recent class. So, kudos to that group that just graduated.
Well said.
All right, Mr. Hanley, take it away on safety, security, and human resources. And I do know Mr. Wallace is in the area somewhere as well. So,
Mr. Wallace, wave. Thank you. He's in the back hiding. Yep. All right. So we're going to start with the 10-year look back in our school safety. So. 2015 to 2025, we started with a movement from unarmed guards to school resource officers. We established a command center in our high school. We upgraded our visitor and employee ID systems in addition to our secondary students ID system. And then we started to shift into the training aspect of our employees, our staff, So Stop the Bleed trainings. We initiated some Stop the Bleed kits in each one of our classrooms and locations within the district, in addition to our AEDs that we're updating and we have in each one of our buildings. We initiated the RAVE app for our employees to have an instant communication system in case of an emergency or in a need of a school emergency response drill. We upgraded our cameras throughout the district. In addition, we gave that access in coordination with Suffolk County PD. So in an immediate need, Suffolk County PD can access our cameras and assist us in the event of an emergency. And we have a very strong partnership with the Suffolk County PD. Don't jump me, not yet, right? All right, thank you. 2015 budget, 439,499. 2025 budget, 1375989. Mr. Payne, what's the difference? 936,490. I did that in my head really quick. I did not have that written down. So, next slide, please. Thank you. So some of our strategic goals here, the district will obviously follow all federal, state, and local requirements relating to all emergencies. Instructional remote programs, right? That's that in response to COVID. That ugly time period when everyone was remote, we still have to have our most instructional remote plans ready in the event. So those will always be developed and implemented according to SED guidelines. Thank you. All right, so some of the other enhanced building safety procedures and goals. So obviously we're going to continue with our staff, student, and visitor ID system. We want to know where our students are, where our staff is, obviously when they're coming and going within our building, and also our visitors in case of an emergency. We want to also ensure the correct operation of our door alarms. Annually appoint our district-wide and our building emergency safety teams, what we'd love to call our dirt and upper teams, right? And engage in tabletop activities annually, each and every year. Monitor and revise our emergency plans according to state guidelines, particularly Educational Law 807, 2801-A, and Commissioner's Regulation 15517. Monitor and update additional internal and external security cameras. When we first got our security cameras, they were analog, right? If you have any home cameras, you got your first set of home cameras, you try to zoom in and it gets very granular, very grainy. You can't really tell what you're looking at. So now those cameras are being upgraded to IP cameras. Enhancement of our alarm system, security alerts, increased utilization of a safety RAVE app, as I indicated earlier, and use it more as a communication tool within our buildings with our staff. All of our staff receive annual trainings with our emergency response plan. Our school safety training includes violence prevention, components on mental health as well. In addition, now there's a new law coming out that you have to have a cardiac emergency response plan. That will come in effect within the next year. That will be focusing and will become part of our both building and district-wide safety plans. We will continue to provide CPI training, Stop the Bleed training to instructional and non-instructional staff members. And the last two bullets go along with that cardiac emergency response plan, which is to create an effective AED emergency action plan to ensure that anyone can act quickly and confidently during a cardiac emergency. Knowing where our AEDs are located are the biggest thing. So we create a spreadsheet, we share it 4 or 5 times a year with all of our staff so they know where the AEDs are located in the event. Thank you. Perfect timing. So we will continue to improve upon our overall health and safety of the school district for the students, staff, and community. So the District Health and Safety Committee, or the DIRT, will meet a minimum of 3 times a year, review current practices, students and staff accident reports in addition to that. Develop a baseline for employee work loss, get involved a little bit more on what's going on with with our workers' compensation claims. Is there any way we can improve the overall health and safety of our employees within our district? And then also conduct periodic inspections of our grounds, as we are required to do with NYSER. Next slide, please. All right, so now HR staffing comparison. So overall, even though, as Mr. Payne shared, our enrollment went down, general ed staffing has decreased. And then when you look a little bit closer, special education student needs have increased, therefore our special education personnel have increased. So 2014, 323 gen ed teachers or instructional teachers, currently about 267. It's a difference of 56 staff members or a negative 17.3%. Special ed staff, in comparison, 75 in 2014, 93 now. It's a difference of 18 or 24% increase. Look at administrative comparison from 14 to 25. That's a difference of 4 administrators. Paraprofessionals went from 164 to 207. Transportation, 93 to 64. And an overall total employee comparison, 679 to 651. So again, this is a fluid number. This is, after tonight's consent agenda, this number changes. So this will change very quickly after each and every board meeting. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges in HR? Maintaining certain positions, administrative employees, reduced workforce, more responsibilities for our employees, replacing certain subject area teachers. We are struggling in technology, business, facts, Italian, and certain select science certifications. Very hard to get individuals with these certifications right now. In addition, not only in the instructional side, you look at the non-instructional positions we struggle with. Transportation, huge one. You saw the numbers before. Custodian, custodial services, and maintenance. Right, Mike? Yeah, next slide. All right, so human resources, some of the things that we've done over the last 10 years, we partnered with Stony Brook, Rite Aid, offer some flu clinics and some AccuHealth in order to provide some employee health screenings. Wellness, EAP services. Established on-site and remote mental health workshops for our employees. Established recognition programs for all of our retirees and those employees receiving tenure. Gave out superintendents Soar Like an Eagle Award. Enhanced our mentorship programs for new employees and established transition supports for new employees as well. Some of the goals and actions: we continue to adjust course sections and staffing based on enrollment and district needs. We will continue to offer physical and mental health support options for employees, enhance our employee wellness program, and we will continue to acknowledge and recognize staff, faculty through various channels. That's that.
So a point there, right, in the numbers that Mr. Hanley shared, it all ties together, right? So we have shared that over the years as enrollment has gone down, right, sections have been reduced, right, and general education classroom sections, right, have been reduced. Teachers have retired, and again, if there are less students, then we didn't replace them, right, and that was evident obviously in terms of by the numbers, and we talked about obviously the increased needs for special education population, right, our students. Hence, additional special education teachers, hence, in I think one of the slides earlier, right, the difference in when we look at a budget look back, right, and under the special education umbrella of 15 million versus 30 plus million in terms of for this school year, right. The storyline from all the different departments, right, are there. From a paraprofessional perspective, we've reduced in the hallways, but we've increased in the special education umbrella as well. So, now we are pivoting to finance and operations.
So the first slide is a look back at your tax levy from 2015-2016 school year to 2025-26 school year. And basically, it's been around the same amount, actually 7 years or around the 2% mark, give or take a little bit. Oh, sorry. And again, all these years fell under the tax cap law.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure if we looked back prior to the tax cap law, your levies were probably much higher.
They were, yes.
Much higher. Because like Dr. Farrelly said, you did your budget the opposite way. Everyone gave Central everything they needed or wanted, and then Central went out and said, okay, this is what we're going to tax the community. So now you cannot do that anymore.
I wanted to be consistent with the 10-year look back, but yes, if you look
I
10
know.
years beyond that, it's much higher
Yes,
than this,
yes.
yes.
So that's the law. And again, The tax cap, how that's calculated, is a formula that's given to all districts by the Office of State Controller. There are certain things that you can put in that formula, and only those things. And then again, it's all calculated, and yes, it could be more than 2%, and you are well within your legal limit. You don't have to pierce the cap to be within the legal limit of the tax cap. The next slide, the strategic plan fiscal responsibility goals. What the district will also continue to do was maintain fiscal stability while addressing the needs of the district, present a budget that is within the allowable tax levy. And I just want to add to that, and I think the district did it last budget season, was to try to be more transparent with the community. I think transparency is the key, and also to educate the community as to how we come up with certain numbers and the budget process itself. So I think it'll be a good thing to continue that, and we will continue to adjust staffing based on student enrollment trends. Again, as presented, I think, by Mr. Payne, if the enrollment continues to go down, we'll have to keep looking at enrollment numbers and staffing. The next slide, strategic plan fiscal responsibility goals continued. We will seek to decrease expenditures, maximize aid, and seek alternative funding sources. Within the next, like Dr. Farrelly said, within the next month or so, a lot of forms have to be submitted to SED, which these forms are used to base the state aid for the district on, and they're very important, and so we have to make sure the information we supply on these forms to SED are correct, so the district gets the state aid that they are due. We will also seek additional revenue, maintain partnerships with BOCES. We're renting out our facilities. We will pursue any grant opportunities that are out there that can help the district, and partner with some of our elected officials for bullet aid and other grants that are out there. The next slide talks a little bit about transportation goals, since transportation is going through a change due to the lack of bus drivers that we can hire and keep. So we really have to look at the transportation area. They will enhance the reliability and consistency of transportation services across all the schools and facilities, and they will ensure the safe and timely transportation of students on a consistent basis. They will also strengthen the communication channels between the transportation department and the public, or the parents of the students on our buses. And we will identify and implement long-term financial and operational efficiencies to optimize resources and performance, and plan for the future transportation requirements.
So a couple of pieces that you've already seen in that area, right, for the first time, I don't know in how long, right, I think it was last week or so, and particularly obviously because of the consolidation, the transportation department sent out letters, right, to elementary parents, notifying them of their bus stop, right, that was kind of twofold, to initiate that communication, right, to enhance the communication, also to provide an opportunity for families to reach out should they have a question, right, or a concern, so that they can address it now as opposed to the first day of school, the first, 2 or 3 days of school. So that was, one of the actions, right, associated with in terms of these goals. When we talk about here in general, right, strengthening communications, I think during the last couple of years we could all agree, like the notifications of Suffolk Transportation is going to be the substitute, right, for this. That was new in the last few months, right, now that we have the full team there in transportation. Again, that's an action associated with the second bullet. And the third piece here, which we've talked about, the board authorized a formal evaluation of the transportation den as it relates to the electric vehicle mandate, right? Sometime in the near future, we're going to have them come back, right, and report to the district. I shared a preliminary kind of overview to the board, but they will be at a board meeting to present that information. that is specifically what we're referring to in terms of transportation, you know, the long-term requirements there and the future of how we provide, you know, transportation in our district. Okay.
It's also in the transportation side, we've also been budgeting, even though in some cases it's been an increase, we've budgeted for those expenses, whereas when we were trying to just fill in, it was all emergency, you know, requirements.
Correct.
and
Yes, exactly.
Pulling from other areas to try and fill
Definitely.
that gap, whereas now we've factored that in, so it's not as much of a shock.
Correct.
It's still an increase in
Right,
some
it's still
cases,
definitely an
but-
increase. There's less drivers noted in terms of as our own employees, but right, and the budget is higher, but it is a planned, right, system in place to account for that consistency of transportation, definitely.
Question on Mr. Payne's presentation.
Yes.
When he said the state had a range of special education percentage being around 15%, what is that calculation from?
In other words, when they look at our least restrictive to most restrictive placements, they give us a guideline of where they would like to see things. So overall, they try to get schools to aim toward that percentage. It's from their numbers. I mean, I would love to tell you it comes from a specific number, but that's just their recommendation.
Right.
And then each of the categories of, let's say, inclusion, resource room, and self-contained are components of that 15%.
Okay. So it's kind of not really an arbitrary number they've come up with. I mean, because they don't address the issue if you're above it. Obviously, if you're at 22%, they're not saying,
They do if it becomes more restrictive.
Oh,
So
more
so if you had, right, so if you had 22% and a certain percentage of them were in self-contained, you will get called on it.
Okay.
And I think we have in the past.
Right, and specifically like the New York State Alternative Assessment is another kind of caveat of that, right?
Right.
If we exceed 1%, right, of students who are alternatively assessed, right, we are contacted in terms of the why and what are we doing and can you know, we have to share information about the specifics there. Yep.
I just had a question on the roofs at the roof at the high school. Have we detected any leaks since the roof's been redone? And then the second question is, how do we call on a warranty issue with the roof? I think we have 10 years on that. If we've had the solar panels, does that interfere with the warranty issue?
Right, so just with the leak first, we did have a leak over the LGI offices, and it was due to a ladder grinding into the TPO membrane, so we had the company come and cut and replace. So the way that works is I literally call the installer, and they put me in touch with the manufacturer Mansville, or right now, for 2 years, the installer is guaranteeing that roof. So currently, we're calling them. After that, it would be the Mansville rep. They would come back and they would honor that roof warranty, I think, for 20 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Because of a ladder, though?
Well, this one was a ladder because it had people were carrying things on it, so the foot of the ladder actually
Gotcha.
started to dig because the membrane of our roof is actually almost like a pool liner, but just thicker.
Right.
So unfortunately, there it wound up, just getting enough of that surface to kind of open up, and they came and they cut it and they sealed, they heat welded it back together.
Okay.
So
Cut the
it's
bottom
fine.
of the ladder off or something, I guess, a little bit?
No, well, we took the ladder off. It was
Oh.
an extension ladder that somebody
it
brought
wasn't a
up there.
permanent one,
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't a ladder, a fixed ladder to the building. And we did see, an improvement from there. There have been a couple of things that have come in, and we've called our company back. Some of it's been determined that it's basically the brickwork. The repointing is needed on some of the brick faces. That's that. And in other instances, it was some of the window units and the lentils and things like that, because our windows are, they're getting to a point too where they're starting to age. So that's been some of the signs. I know there's one over here that's driving me crazy, but that's, I think, associated with ductwork. So I want to make sure any of those, because I'm sure as a taxpayer that you approve this bond and now your student is coming home and saying, Mom, it's raining in the bowling alley. I've heard that in the past. So just to address that leak, that was a mechanical unit on the roof that we had a leak in the coil for the heating coil. And it came down through a conduit. So that's not leaking at all.
So any roof issues we've had, when we call, they're coming out, they're taking
Yeah, and
care.
they've
We haven't
been
had any-
unbelievably attentive to us. We added those things above the pack center for the seagulls. So I think we reduced it from like 25 seagulls down to 4. There's some brave seagulls up there, those bird deflectors. So we're working on it, and it's anything that reveals, please let me know, because I obviously want to exercise that warranty for the duration that we have it as much as possible.
Yeah. We had a,
Flat roof too, right?
I don't know why, whoever invented the flat roof. Obviously, very bad timing to bring this up because of everything we've had, especially your team's had this summer. But I know a few years back, when things weren't as crazy, we had started to develop that HIT team that was taking on, doing more in-house projects like the LED lighting, stuff like that. Is there ever a point where we can get back to that, or are we running so tight that we have to find other methods to get some of those projects done?
I would say 100% we're way too tight to, kind of tackle it. in
This
terms
summer, of course, I get that.
I think definitely in some time in the future, I mean, that definitely is, and Mike brought up in terms of as people have left and the new people that we're hiring, looking for them to have specialty areas, right, and strengths, right? That's part of establishing that team, right, to be able to do those things, right? I mean, it's so nice now, like, when we can have our own guys, they're gonna do a whole new, when we were doing a walkthrough at Sanapog, right? Mike's like, okay, well, our guys can do X, Y, Z with the roof here, we can do this here, there. So yes, we definitely want to go back to that, and that is, that's still in the planning and execution in the sense of who we hire, right? In terms of to be part of the team. And also part of the discussion when Mike brought up, he didn't say this exactly, but when he brought up in terms of just the garbage example, right, of the truck, and if we have an outside entity, right, take care of that, then that gives the time back, right, for us to bring our guys that are doing that, carting that, right, for some of the other.
So the outside companies don't pick up from a central dumpster? Because you said something about the garbage should have to be on the curb?
Well, our garbage currently is going to the curb of the building.
Oh, I got you.
Or,
Okay.
A deposit
Understood.
location that the building head has determined.
Right. Okay.
And our guys are driving a garbage truck back up, they have a CDL.
Gotcha.
But that also puts that stress on the department too, right? We have currently two CDL operatives. If we lose one or two, we're sort of in a pickle. Just getting to the in-house projects, the guys are even dying to do it because they have that sense of accomplishment when they do that. So even the LED flat panel lighting in here, we were able to do during, I think, one of the April breaks or the February breaks. So, that's all on the table for us. We're currently modifying a lot of the district to accommodate staffing changes and things like that, and utilizing our spaces.
I didn't bring that up
efficiently.
to
No, not
say
at all.
anything
I want to make sure that
we had you here today, so.
Yeah, no, I listen. The guys love it. I love it too. I mean, it's a big part of what we're doing. So.
Other questions? All right, look out for my survey tomorrow morning. That's it. I am done, Mr. Pitt.
All right, next presentation? Oh, sorry.
Nice job.
I'm just curious if Grace's parents are gonna come to every meeting. 'Cause this is a long one. This is a long one. All right. Okay, statement of residence on agenda items only. Residents wishing to share a statement, state their name, their address, and any organization they may be representing. Residents can also write their name and address on the index card and provide it and present it to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. Matters relating to individual students or employees cannot be discussed at a public board meeting. Residents will be given up to 3 minutes to share their statement. The statement of residence is scheduled for 15 minutes. At the conclusion of the statement of residence, we will respond to those statements, questions we can answer. For questions requiring further research, responses will be provided at the next meeting. Nope, not it? That's good, okay. All right. Okay, I said all that. Approval of the consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda? Steve, Kathy, all those in favor?